Wanted to bring you a live picture from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. In just over an hour, at 6 o'clock, speakers will be taking to the stage. Among them, Virginia U.S. Senate candidate Hung Cao and West Virginia Governor Jim Justice. Well, tonight's theme will touch on crime and immigration.
All right, here to talk more about the Republican convention is Lenny Steinhorn, political analyst and professor of communication and history at American University. Lenny, as always, great to see you. I want to start off talking about JD Vance, the president, former President Trump, announcing him yesterday on social media, saying that he thought Vance was somebody who would do the ticket well in some of these key battleground states. I mean, he literally pointed to Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Does JD Vance do that for the Republican ticket?
I think that's their wish. I think Donald Trump already has the motivation of the type of voter that JD Vance would attract. White, working class, aggrieved, a sense that the coastal elites aren't, giving them a fair shot. This is what JD Vance's message has been, but he is going to camp out and motivate those voters to get out. And if you get high turnout, it doesn't matter how many other voters you bring in, that could sort of neutralize any independence that might shift Joe Biden's way. So, look, his book was very popular, Hillbilly Elegy. It seemed to be sort of one of those books that a lot of folks or liberals and people in cities were reading a couple years ago to try and understand the Trump voter. So he may have a bit of good reputation from that to attract, let's say, people who were in book clubs, who are reading this book, who felt, oh my gosh, this guy's smart, he's compelling, I'm going to listen to him. But I think the bottom line for Donald Trump is getting his voters out and getting them motivated. And I think JD Vance can help with that. But with the Democrats doing a lot of opposition research, for example, something just came out today that JD Vance has praised Alex Jones, you can bet that the Democrats are going to go after those independent suburban voters and say, hey, don't judge this book by its cover. There's a lot more to JD Vance than you might think there is.
Well, speaking of opposition research, I did want to mention JD Vance. What came out immediately after this nomination was announced, he was so anti-Trump in previous statements about the former president. I mean, some of these tweets and statements have just aged like milk. He called Trump Hitler at one point. I mean, what are some of his liabilities, maybe blind spots that people need to understand?
Well, again, the Democrats are going to use that in their ads. They're going to be able to pound every single voter with a notion that JD Vance was the one who was saying these things about Donald Trump. But look, Donald Trump also likes to have people convert to his cause, to bend on their knee toward him, to be able to praise him. And that's exactly what JD Vance has been doing over the last few years, so much so that many people think that he's the next generation MAGA leader. And that's exactly why Donald Trump ultimately supported him. So look, the fact that JD Vance called Donald Trump a potential American Hitler and said all sorts of other things that were negative about former President Trump, the bottom line is Donald Trump chose him. Donald Trump can say that he forgives him. Donald Trump can say that JD Vance has grown and learned and taken on Donald Trump's philosophy. And so I don't think those will hurt JD Vance quite as much as the Democrats might hope.
Lenny, let's talk about the Republican platform. The theme tonight at the convention, Make America Safe Again. One of the main things that Republicans will be harping on is crime, the border, drugs. Is that a winning issue for Republicans, not only at the presidential level, but down ballot?
Yeah, it's a winning issue. A lot of Americans are concerned about immigration. They're concerned about crime. And I think what Donald Trump is thinking, look, last night he brought on a lot of African-American speakers, try and pry some African-American men toward his way. He brought on the head of the Teamsters Union, try and pry union voters his way, which went heavily for Joe Biden in 2020. What he's looking to do tonight is to go to those sort of raw nerve issues that bother a lot of suburbanites in America. The whole notion of immigration, of crime, a sense of anxiety, a sense that America is falling apart, that there's a lot of disorder out there. And if there's anything that suburban voters want, it's to be able to create a sense of order so that they can raise their kids in a good, ordered civil society. And that's exactly what he's going to target tonight with all of these messages and themes.
Okay, before we have to go, I'm curious, it's July, but looking down the path here, November, is there going to be a change in leadership? What is your prediction?
Oh, there's a great baseball player, Yogi Berra, who used to say, I never make predictions, especially about the future. But look, there's incredible discontent in the Democratic Party about Joe Biden precisely because of his pretty terrible debate performance. And he looked like an old, doddering man who couldn't complete his sentences. He's been trying to recover ever since. The attempted assassination of former President Trump gave Joe Biden an opportunity to talk about healing, which goes back to the message that he ran on in 2020, saying that he was running for president after that Charlottesville Ku Klux Klan sort of white nationalist march, saying we've got to heal America and bring people together again. So I think to some extent the Democrats have pulled back just a little bit after what happened with the former president and Joe Biden's speech, but there's still a lot of discontent. Joe Biden, from all indications, is going to stick it out, and they are going to read the polls very selectively to suggest that he is within striking distance and can pull this off in November. So if I had to bet, I would say likely Joe Biden is the nominee, but there's still a chance that the party elders or Nancy Pelosi or some others could go up to him and say, you are going to drag this entire party down. Don't let that be your legacy.
All right. Lenny Steinhorn with us today. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Thanks a lot.